Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. We are going to be going over 5 henna drills that any beginner henna artist should practice in order to improve their skills. So you can kind of see here, I've got quite a few drills for you to practice. We're going to go over everything step by step, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys like this video. So please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I come up with a new video every week, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys want me to come out with next. This is something that a lot of people have been asking about, and I really hope that it improves your practice. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you tried anything out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. So without further ado, maybe you might want to grab a henna cone yourself and practice along with me. But yeah, let's get into the video. All right, so we're going to be practicing some drills that beginners should try out if they're trying to improve their henna skills. And the first drill that we're going to do is called draping. And so basically that's when you take your henna cone slightly in the air and you go from point A to point B in one single movement. So here we go. And you want to make sure you have the same pressure applied throughout, and that allows you to create a really nice and clean line. So you're going to want to practice this a few times as lines first, and then you can actually take this method and you can create different shapes. And here you can kind of see there's a little gap. Sometimes that happens, and you can just kind of fill it in like that. And then you can also, in order to clean that up, you can create another line, and you can actually make it a thick line, and that will kind of mask any mistakes that you might have made and just really cleans it up. So that is one option if it kind of goes a little wonky, but you should try to learn how to do it in one movement as best you can without it breaking. So we can try this a few more times. You can try to get them close together as well. For example, if you're trying to create borders. And then once you feel confident, you can move on to different shapes. So for example, you can do a square. And you're just draping the line across, like so. So you can also create like a diamond shape too. But for example, you can also do things like circles, which is a little bit more challenging. So try to get these down as well as you can, and then you can try to do a circle. And so I know sometimes doing the circles as a draped circle can be a little challenging. So you can also lightly create a rough circle. And then once you have this kind of guide set up, you can then drape around, because the henna will just kind of stick to it a little bit easier. And at least you have something to visualize as you drape around. So there's that. You can do different sizes. Learning how to do small ones will allow you to also create nice little swirls like this, which can be kind of challenging in the beginning. So you can try to do this a few times as well. This is a good drill to kind of practice, is doing the circle first and then moving inwards as you're kind of evenly just swirling to the center. You can also do it without the big dot, which I think also looks really good, and is what I do a lot of the times. At the very end, I'll touch the paper and I'll just kind of wisp it to a tapered center like that. And so that is draping. Again, and a little bit more advanced draping technique is to drape the paisley, and that would look like this. Like that. I have a whole video on paisleys, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it. And again, don't worry if it breaks a little bit, you can always kind of clean that up. But you should try to practice also going the opposite way as well. So that is draping. That is something that I recommend you to just fill up a whole page, get really, really comfortable with it, because it's going to help your work a lot. One question would be is, what if the person that you're working on has arm hair? In that case, you aren't going to really be able to drape But just to kind of give you an idea, you just have to be a little bit more steady if you're working flush to the skin or paper. But you can kind of see it's definitely more jagged, so getting draping will just help in the long run. So getting used to that. So the next drill that I would recommend a beginner to practice with is going to be scallops. And so building on what we just did, if you just drape a line across. So a lot of times, so this is what I'm talking about when I talk about scallops, are these things. So sometimes it could be really challenging in the beginning to get them all the same height. So what I would recommend is to do, again, just kind of a really soft and light line across, just to kind of give your eyes a visual guide. And then you can work on creating the scallops all the same height. So this is a drill that you should really practice, because these are obviously used quite a lot in henna designs. And this is, you know, my real speed. But eventually you can get this fast, but don't worry, in the beginning you might want to go a little bit slow, like this. Going really slow in the beginning will really help you with accuracy and developing muscle memory, which is what's important when doing henna drills in the first place. You're really just trying to work, you know, your muscles so that you can remember, and then eventually be able to go really fast like this. Get them all the same height. So that is scallops, and then you can also practice larger ones as well. So again, you can just do a really light line just to kind of give your eyes a guide, and then create them a little bit thicker. So imagine like 3 of these. You're creating 1. So this is a larger scallop. So these are definitely some things that I think you should practice. Again, just fill up a whole page so that you're not worried about creating a masterpiece right away. You're just really working on the accuracy. That way, when you're building your own designs in a freestyle, then it just comes a lot easier. You kind of already know, your hand already knows what to do, and then you're good. So I'm just gonna finish this up here. So these are scallops. Again, you can just drape that line, building on what we learned, and then you can also make them thinner too, which is a style that I think looks really good too. And then just to give you an idea of some variation, adding some little luscious dots in there, like so. And then this is a really good segue into creating your own borders. The next drill I would recommend is learning how to do swirls with a tapered point. So what I mean by that is you have thin, thick, 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 and then as you swoop in, thinner, 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 like that. So again, going in with the swirls. And if this is challenging, like for example, I'm gonna show you what not to do. So if it's like this, and then like that, or something. I mean, I guess that doesn't look too bad, but you're kind of wanting to do more of a graceful swirl. Like for example, if it's like really thick and like not cohesive like that, I'm trying to show you how not to do it, maybe like that or something. So you really want to focus on creating thin and then a gradual thickness and then a gradual thinness. It's challenging in the beginning, so don't worry. Again, there you go. So these ones are going to be what you don't want to try to do, and this is what you're going to want to do. So it can be a little bit challenging in the beginning. So if this is just really hard for you to do right now, I'll show you another drill that you can kind of practice that will help you when you're swirling, because sometimes doing the opposite motions or directions can be hard. So going back to the line, what you're going to want to do is start the same width and then gradually get bigger and bigger, and then gradually get smaller and smaller, like that. So learning how to do, I think there's, I'm not sure if you guys know who Victoria is, but she does a really awesome class on this. I think they call them henna slugs. So just, they kind of look like slugs, right? So just learning how, this is a really good way to learn how to go from thick to thin, and then eventually, so this is basically what you're doing, but in a curved form, right? So taking this concept of starting thin and then going thicker, 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 and then thinner, 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 creating a tapered edge. And so it's like very light pressure here, like hardly any at all. And sometimes that could be challenging. So first in the beginning, you might want to just try to do a small one like that, and then eventually you can kind of build it up to doing a really long one like that. So just really making sure to make it gradual. All right, so that is the second drill, or the third drill actually, that you should try to practice. Again, just get a scrap piece of paper out. Don't worry about messing up. You're just really trying to get muscle memory down. So doing different lengths of these will really help. And then once you feel comfortable with the swirl, then the fourth drill I would recommend is the leaves. So this can be really, really challenging in the beginning. So for example, building on the swirl, so you got your nice swirl here, and very similar concept. I like to start thin from the bottom and then work up thicker, 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 and then taper like that. So again, it's like the same thing, but just in a curved form. So again, these look really, really nice, and you just want to make sure you have an even amount of space in between them. So again, we're just going to do a nice little swirl. And so you're following the curve of the swirl that you created, and just at the very end, you're slightly going across. So it's like a spiral, you know, if you ever look at, say, like the Milky Way or something, it's spiraling out. It's not following the same direction. It's kind of slowly moving outwards. So again, thin, thick, and then slightly out, thin, thick, slightly out. And so each of these you make a little bit smaller, and that gives the kind of flow of a nice, I guess, swirl or spiral, just spiraling out. And so these are elements that I use all the time in my work. If you followed me for any length of time, especially on Instagram, you'll see I incorporate these in a lot of my designs. I mean, you could always make it another swirl too, for example. So there's definitely a lot of different stylized ways you can do it, but you're really just looking for accuracy and just an evenness, and that just really makes the design or the element just really pop, and it just looks really aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. So I'm going to try to do one that's kind of like a don't do. So these are all good, kind of what you're going for. For example, let's say, you know, you're just kind of like, it's not perfect, and then it kind of goes like that or something. So this is kind of what you're trying to avoid, for example. So you can kind of see it's a little bit, it's just out of sync. So it's not a graceful movement with the flow that you've already created. It's very much just random in a way. So there's like too much of a gap here, too much of a gap here, and here it's not a even swirl, it's a little bit jagged, and then especially the center too, it's just not as accurate. So this is where you're gonna try to not do, and then also you can kind of see they're still really thin, so it doesn't give much contrast. You can kind of see there's definitely thickness, but there's like thinness too. So that's what makes this look, you can say, more pleasing to the eye, is that there's a lot of contrast between thick and thin, which is definitely what you want to try to go for. So again, I'll do it maybe one more time. So the swirl, and then the gradual leaves, like that. All right, so that is the fourth drill. So the next drill I would recommend to practice is kind of building on all of this, and that's going to be an actual vine. So again, taking it back to the beginning, creating a nice straight line with your drape technique. And then you're basically doing the same concept, but you are making a vine. So I usually start with one side first. So it's thin, then thick, and then thin. And it's almost kind of like a flick of the wrist. So thin, thick, a little bit of a thick, and that creates that tapered point. These are really tough in the beginning. I know, especially. I remember mine looked quite wonky. All right, so I'm gonna kind of show you what not to do. So what I see a lot of people do is like do it really thick and then like that. So it's like super thin, thick, and then really too pointy. Let's see another one is like maybe not straight, like that. Or they kind of like the tip just kind of curves. So this is gonna be what you want to try to avoid, and you want to try to get them even. So that's the importance of doing drills like this, is that you're able to really focus on making it as even and as clean as possible, and trying to avoid them looking too different, and trying to avoid too much of a variation from thin to thick. Although, I mean, it doesn't look bad per se, but I would say this just looks a little bit better, a little bit more subtle, more like a vine, and you're trying to get them all kind of the same width and height. So again, just fill up the whole paper. That's the easiest way to get it down fast, is doing henna drills like this. So again, we'll try it again. So you're gonna wanna create that nice line. For some people, this can be a little bit challenging in the beginning. So I know one method, it's kind of more of a two-part method, is doing more of a teardrop, which seems to be a little bit easier for people, and then just taking the tip of your cone and then dragging it into a point. So if this is the way that you have to do it, there's definitely no right or wrong. It's mainly all about preference. The only thing is this takes a little bit longer, you could say, because of the two-part method. So that's why I usually prefer to be able to just do it in one swoop. That way it's a little bit faster. And I think these end up looking a little bit different than if you're able to do it like this. They just kind of end up looking just slightly different. But this is also a good vine to practice, is just doing the teardrop, because you can also do that as a vine in itself, which looks really good. So I'll kind of show you how to do that. So it's basically you're working in the opposite direction, and you're creating more of a teardrop that just gradually curves into the line like that. And also one side of the line is usually going to be a little bit easier depending. So for me, I would say for this, doing the top here is easier, whereas here I would say doing the bottom is a little bit easier than doing the top. So it all depends. I mean, if you're lefty or righty, it might be a little bit different, but you definitely want to be able to practice both sides just so that you feel confident in doing a vine, because generally a vine has both sides, right? So here is more of a teardrop vine, and this is, again, we're kind of building on the draping technique as well as the gradual movement technique. And so you can kind of see, just practicing these designs here, kind of show you. So doing all of these different drills, just get a big piece of paper and then just practice them one by one. If you can do this every day, it will really help your practice in the long run, and you'll improve much faster, and you'll see that your work will look cleaner and cleaner the more that you can kind of sit down. It doesn't have to be a long time, maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however much time you have. Just sit down and practice some of these core drills, these core elements that you use pretty much as building blocks for creating designs. So these are 5 drills. Again, I'll go over them. We have draping, and learning how to drape in different types of shapes, but definitely getting down the straight line for sure. The next one are the scallops, learning how to do thick, thin, big, and small scallops and have them all be the same height is really, really going to help you practice. And then the third one is learning how to do this little swirl motif here, and you really just want to focus on going from thin to thick. And as a additional practice to this concept is learning how to do the slugs. So going from thin to thick again, just creating that nice taper is really important. And then learning how to do these leaves here is the last drill that you're going to want to practice. And once you feel comfortable doing it around a swirl like so, then you should want to practice a vine like this. So again, there's two different ways to do it. You can do it in one motion, or you can do the teardrop first, take the tip of your brush and just barely, without hardly any pressure, just kind of make it into a point. So learning all these, yes, will help you immensely. So please let me know if you practiced any of these. If you did, let me know what you thought of them, if they help you. And of course, as always, if you like these videos, please like, share, and subscribe. That will help me out a ton. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Let me know what you thought of this video down below, and I'll see you in the next one.